Here's a backend development roadmap that most people don't know about, and the last step is the most important one. But to be honest, learning backend was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my whole life. And if you check internet, people say that backend is really hard. It's really, really hard. But I don't really mean to scare you, because once you start coding, everything becomes easier for you. So I really think that when you hear around internet that everyone says that quality is better than quantity, in programming, it's not really the same. You only get better by practicing. Prioritize the quantity over the quality. Why? Because every time you code, you find more errors, you find more issues that you have or more problems that you have, and you start solving them. So by the time passes, you'll be better as a backend developer. And that's what I'm going to tell you in this video. I'm going to walk you through an exact roadmap that you can start from zero to become a full professional backend development. Before we dive deep into that, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you not to be ashamed of practicing, and don't be embarrassed every time you have some errors, because in programming, in coding, it's totally okay. I remember the first time I started coding, my code was looking like shit. I really mean that. It was full of error. So don't be too hard on yourself, and just put an effort into that. Just keep practicing and you'll be better. So let's start the roadmap. The first thing I really want you to do is learning the internet. But I don't really mean that you should dive deep into that and understand the whole functionality and how people around the world get connected to a gigantic network called internet. No, it's not really what I mean. As a backend developer, most part of your job is setting up the server side. So for that, you need to know what is domain, what is DNS, what is server, what is HTTPS protocol. And by knowing that, and by knowing a little bit of web security, you already are 10% better than other backend developers. But I don't want you to pay anything to understand these stuff. I don't really want you to buy a course or attend in a boot camp. No. All I want you to do is open up Google Chrome or any browser you want and search these terms on Google. And by that, when you read articles about that, you understand the functionality and basics of internet and how browsers work, what technologies do they have, and by knowing that, you are better. But to be honest, I really didn't do that when I first started learning, because I had no mentor and I had to learn it by myself. So I didn't do that. It doesn't directly affect on your coding, but once you know that, you can, in my opinion, I really think that you can code better and you understand things better. And the more knowledge you have about your job you're doing, the better you are at that job. So that's the first step you want to do. The next step, and by the way, from here the process really begins. You have to pick the language you want. We've got a few languages, a few programming languages for backend. We've got JavaScript, we've got Go language, we've got Python, we've got Ruby, Java, C#, PHP, and Rust. Each of them are unique. Each of them has their own benefit. So people ask me all the time, how do I pick the best language? There's no best language. All these languages are prioritized based on your tasks and the network you have. Why network? Because the better network you have, the more professional projects you will have. So that's important. If someone knows government people, he tends to have more projects and harder projects rather than someone who's just starting to learn coding and doesn't know any important people around the society. So all these languages I'm telling you are prioritized based on the tasks you have, the difficulty of your project. JavaScript If you watch my previous video, I fully described about the difference between front end and back end. The link is up here. Make sure to watch that. But we've got two fields, two completely different fields for web development. We've got front end and we've got back end. Each of them are unique and has their own technologies and benefits and stuff, but there's something similar in both fields, and that is JavaScript. JavaScript used to be only for front end, but recently it actually is coming to backend as well, because it's really powerful and it's fantastic, JavaScript. When I first started learning backend, I started by PHP because PHP was more famous than these one. But Go is good, Python is good if you want to have AI on your website, Rust is good, Java, mostly used for application designs for smartphones, but it uses for, we can use it for websites as well. A recent study by a website named TLV Tech shows that when choosing the best language for backend, it's mostly about the tasks you're going to have. If you need to handle a lot of data or expect lots of visitors, Python or Node.js could be your best option. On the other hand, if you need to craft a site with refined simple UI, Ruby may be your go-to pick. But you need to do your research on all these languages I'm telling you, because if I wanted to talk about the difference about these languages, it would have been a whole other website. By the way, you can subscribe this channel and I'm going to tell you about the difference on both front end and back end. In this channel, I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm just going to help you become a better web developer. The next thing you need to do is learn version control systems, aka the Gits. Once again, I need to flash back to my previous video. I fully described Git in my previous video, because for coding you really need to know about version control systems or the Git. As the simplest kind of explanation, VCS are the tools that track any kind of changes you make to your file or your code. These tools allow multiple users to work on the same project at the same time. So it's perfect for coding. They record every change made to a file, enabling developers to revert to previous versions. What does it mean? It means if you have the first version of your code or your application and save it on a VCS, every change you make, for example, you switch to version 2, to version 3, to version 3.1, whatever, doesn't matter. You can access to your first version, and that's the perfect thing for a developer. Alright, now it's time to learn database. Database is one of the most important things on your website. If you don't have them, you don't have a website. Why? Because everything you have will be stored on these databases. So relational databases are a type of database management systems, aka DBMS, that organizes data into structured tables with rows and columns, using a schema to define data relationships and constraints. So imagine, what do I have? Imagine you have this cup as your database. What do you store in this? Usually you store water, soda, all these drinks, juice, milk, whatever. And with this as a relational database, you can divide this database into multiple parts as you want. Each of them with a row and a column. Why that? For example, you have this part for your water. You divide it into column and row. Why? Because as a column, you can store multiple types of water, for instance. And you can have the number of them. As a row, you can write the names on it. For example, you have one row, the name of a water, the type of a water, the whole chemical of water, and that's a complete row. The next row will be another type of water. For example, it'll be a juice. And the important part and the most interesting part of your database is that you can create relationships between your tables, between the sections that you create on your database. And that's a perfect thing. For example, you have a table, a section for yourself in this database that you can say what people like. For example, the user one, for example, me, I want water. You write user one and you create a connection between the section that what user want and your water. And you can, and with this, what happened with this work, you store one data once and you can use it multiple times in different tables, and that's perfect. So we have 5 database management systems. We've got MariaDB, we've got MS SQL, we've got Oracle, we've got SQLite, and one of them, and the last one that I think is the most famous one, is MySQL. Here's one of the most important parts of learning backend development. You have to learn API. APIs are a set of defined rules and protocols that allow multiple software applications to interact with each other. APIs are surprisingly significant in the current world as they dedicate how developers create applications that utilize as web service like Facebook or Google Map and many more. And also we've got 4 types of different API. We've got public API, we've got partner API, we've got private API, and we've got the composite API. But I can't really talk about the difference here because now it's time to learn the next step. We have 3 types of caching. We've got server side, we've got CDN, and we have client side. Caching is one of the most important parts of your job, and if you do it the right way, you can optimize the speed of your website in many ways, and you can have better SEO. But for those people who don't know what caching is, I should really describe. Caching is a technique used in computing to store and retrieve frequently accessed data quickly, reducing the need to fetch it from the original, slower source repeatedly. What do I mean? For example, so imagine you visit my website many times and I don't really change the look and the features my website has. So you visit my website, and if I'm a smart backend developer and if I know this section correctly, I write codes that cache some part of my website on your browser. It calls cookie, I guess, itself. Cookies are a technology that backend has that allow browser to store some frequently data in itself, and it helps the speed of my website load in many ways. So the next part is web security. If you know this part correctly and if you practice more on this part, you can make 50% more money than all other backend developers. This part is so important, and web security is a whole other job itself. So we've got multiple ways to secure our website, but there are some more relevant ways than others. We've got 3 the most relevant ways, and they're common and most people use. One of these relevant ways is SHA. I know SHA-1 algorithm has been fully broken many times ago, but I don't really know about the other updates and other algorithms that it has. The next one is a script, the script method. Learn a script method for God's sake. It's that good. It's awesome. Based on Google, no versions of a script has been broken yet, and it's the opportunity that you want to secure your website. And the last one is the bcrypt. Why bcrypt? Because bcrypt is so time consuming and it's so long, the algorithm is so long that people don't have time or don't feel like even going in the way to break the algorithm. So Bcrypt and Script are really good and the opportunity that you want to secure your website. But many of you may ask me, why didn't I talk about the MD algorithm? Because the MD has been broken in 2008, I guess, if I'm not wrong. It has been broken in 2008, and you can break it as well. We've got so many tools that can break the algorithm and get access to the applications. So don't use that. Please don't use that. I have passed these web security courses, and I know what I'm talking about. So don't do that. And that's pretty much it. That's the complete roadmap from level 0 to the professional way that you need to pass and be a backend developer. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in comment section. And if you like this video, click the like button. And if you feel like wanting to learn more about web development, both front-end and back-end development, make sure to subscribe this channel and we'll be in touch. Until next video, stay safe.